Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the stars shift from their normal patterns. The ship's sensors were picking up something big coming their way. He had been expecting this moment for weeks now. The tension between humans and the Kethvar had been building like a storm ready to break. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," said Navigation Officer Lisa Park from her station. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the slight edge in it. 7 ships, all Kethvar design. Jake nodded and stepped closer to the main display screen. The enemy ships were taking positions around the Liberty in a perfect circle. It was exactly what he had expected them to do. The Kethvar always used the same tactics. They surrounded their enemies and demanded surrender. It had worked for them for hundreds of years. "Red alert," Jake ordered. "All hands to battle stations." The bridge lights changed to red, and the ship's alarm sounded 3 times. Around him, his crew moved to their positions with practiced speed. These were good people, trained and ready for what was coming. Weapons Specialist Ryan Cole checked his displays and looked up at Jake. "All weapon systems are online, Captain. Shields at maximum power." "Good," Jake said. He walked back to his command chair and sat down. His hands rested on the armrests, but his body was relaxed. This was the moment he had been preparing for. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The main screen flickered and changed to show the face of a Kethvar commander, the aliens. Skin was green and scaled, with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light of his ship's bridge. Jake had seen pictures of Kethvar before, but this was his first time talking to one face-to-face. "I am Commander Vex Thul of the Kethvar. Hegemony," the alien said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "You are Captain Morrison of the human vessel Liberty." "That's right," Jake replied. He kept his voice steady and calm. "What can I do for you, Commander?" "You can surrender," Vex Thul said. The alien's mouth opened to show rows of sharp teeth. "You are in Kethvar space without permission. Your ship will be taken and your crew will be prisoners." Jake looked at the tactical display on his chair's arm. The 7 enemy ships were in perfect formation around the Liberty. Each ship was bigger than his own and carried more weapons. By any normal measure, this should have been the end of the fight before it started. "Let me get this straight," Jake said. "You want me to surrender because I'm outnumbered 7-1. "Correct," Vex Thul replied. "Your species is new to space travel. You do not understand the ways of war among the stars. The Kethvar have been fighting battles when your people were still learning to make fire." Jake smiled at that. It was not a friendly smile. "Commander, you might want to check your history books. Humans have been making fire for a very long time. We've also been making war for just as long." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "Your words mean nothing. You have 1 ship, I have 7. Mathematics is the same everywhere in the galaxy." "You're absolutely right about mathematics," Jake said. He stood up from his chair and walked closer to the main screen. "But you might want to run those numbers again." Behind him, Jake could hear the quiet sounds of his bridge crew working at their stations. Lisa Park was monitoring the enemy ship's positions. Ryan Cole had his finger ready over the weapon controls. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks was watching the power levels from his station near the back of the bridge. "What do you mean?" Vex Thul asked. For the first time, the alien sounded less certain. "I mean, you told me I was outnumbered," Jake said. His grin grew wider. "The funny thing is, Commander, so are you." Vex Thul's face changed. The confident look disappeared and was replaced by confusion. "Explain yourself, human." "Gladly," Jake replied. He turned to his tactical officer. "Nicole, show our friend what he's really dealing with." Nicole White's fingers moved across her control panel. The Liberty's sensors began broadcasting on all frequencies, sending out a signal that Jake had been waiting months to use. On the main screen, Vex Thul's eyes went wide. "Impossible," he whispered. Jake could see why the alien was shocked. The tactical display was showing something that should not have been possible. The Liberty's energy signature was changing, splitting, and multiplying. What had looked like one human ship was now showing up as 4 different vessels. "You see, Commander," Jake said. Humans learned a long time ago that the best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy doesn't know what they're really fighting. The Kethvar ships began moving closer, their weapons powering up. Jake could see the energy readings on his displays climbing as the aliens prepared to fire. "This is some kind of trick," Vexthul snarled. "Sensor ghosts or electronic warfare. You still have only one ship." "Do I?" Jake asked. He was still smiling, but now his voice carried a harder edge. "Tell me, Commander, in all your years of fighting battles, have you ever fought humans before?" "No," Vexthul admitted. "Your species has only recently left your home world." "Then you don't know what we're capable of," Jake said. "You don't know how we think, how we plan, or how we fight. You saw one human ship and thought you knew everything you needed to know." The alien commander's face was getting darker. Jake could tell that Vexthul was starting to realize he might have made a mistake. "You are bluffing," the Kethvar said, but his voice sounded less sure than before. "Am I?" Jake replied. He looked at his crew and nodded. "Lisa, take us to position. Alpha, Ryan, prepare to show our guest what human weapons can do." The Liberty began to move, turning slowly in space. The Kethvar ships matched the movement, maintaining their circle formation. Jake watched the tactical display and counted down the seconds in his head. "Last chance, Commander," Jake said to the alien on the screen. "You can turn around and go home, or you can find out why humans don't like to be threatened." Vexthul's response was to cut the communication. The main screen went dark and then switched back to the tactical display. The 7 Kethvar ships were moving into attack formation. "Well," Jake said to his crew, "I guess we do this the hard way." He sat back down in his command chair and gripped the armrests. "All hands, prepare for battle. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves today. We're showing the galaxy what humans can do." The moment the Kethvar ships began their attack run, Jake Morrison activated the first part of his plan. For 3 months, he had been working with the best minds in the human fleet to prepare for this exact situation. The aliens thought they were fighting one ship, but they had no idea what humans were really capable of. "Danny, initiate the Ghost Protocol," Jake ordered. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks smiled as his fingers moved across his control panel. "Ghost Protocol activated, Captain. All systems are green." The Liberty suddenly seemed to flicker on the enemy sensors. What the Kethvar were seeing was not the real ship at all, but a sophisticated holographic projection created by the ship's experimental AI system. The real Liberty was already moving to a different position, hidden by technology that the aliens had never encountered before. Jake had spent months studying Kethvar battle tactics with Dr. Henry Adams, the ship's expert on alien behavior. The doctor had discovered something important about how the Kethvar fought. They always used the same patterns, the same formations, the same strategies. It made them predictable. "Henry, are you reading their formation changes?" Jake asked. Dr. Adams looked up from his station where he was monitoring the alien ships. "Perfect textbook formation, Captain. They're doing exactly what we expected. The command ship is staying in the center while the other 6 move to surround us." "Good," Jake replied. "That means our intelligence was right. Nicole, are our friends in position?" Nicole White checked her tactical display and nodded. "All 3. Ships report ready, Captain. Ghost, Shadow, and Phantom are holding position and waiting for your signal." Jake felt a surge of satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. While the Kethvar had been talking and making threats, 3 other human ships had been moving into position around the battle area. The UES Ghost, UES Shadow, and UES Phantom were equipped with the most advanced cloaking technology humans had ever built. The cloaking system was Danny Brooks' masterpiece. Most alien species had focused on building bigger weapons and stronger shields. Humans had taken a different approach. They had learned how to become invisible. "The beauty of it is," Danny had explained months ago during the planning sessions, "they don't even know to look for cloaked ships. Their sensors are designed to track energy signatures and metal hulls. Our cloaking system bends light and absorbs energy readings. To their equipment, we simply don't exist." Now that technology was about to be put to the ultimate test. The Kethvar ships were moving closer to what they thought was the Liberty. Their weapons were charging up for the killing blow. Jake could see the energy readings climbing on his displays. "Lisa, how long until they're in optimal firing position?" Jake asked. 30 seconds, Captain," Navigation Officer Lisa Park replied. "They're coming in fast and confident." Jake watched the main tactical display as the enemy ships closed in. The Kethvar were making another mistake that Dr. Adams had predicted. They were so focused on their target that they weren't scanning the space around them for other threats. "Ryan, are all weapon systems ready?" Jake asked his weapons specialist. "All systems green, Captain," Ryan Cole replied. "We have target locks on all 7 ships, just give the word." But Jake wasn't ready to give that word yet. The plan required perfect timing. The Kethvar had to believe they were winning right. Up until the moment everything changed. The enemy ships opened fire on the holographic projection of the Liberty. Bright blue plasma beams lanced through space where they thought the human ship was located. The beams passed right through the projection without hitting anything solid. On the main screen, Jake could see the confusion on the Kethvar bridge. Commander Vexthal was shouting orders at his crew. The alien's yellow eyes were wide with shock as he realized that their weapons had hit nothing but empty space. "Now that's what I call a magic trick," Ryan Cole said with a grin. "Just wait," Jake replied. "The real show is about to begin." Dr. Adams had been studying more than just Kethvar battle tactics. He had been learning about their psychology. The aliens were pack hunters by nature. They were used to working together in groups with a clear chain of command. But they had one critical weakness. When their command structure is disrupted, Dr. Adams had explained, they become confused and unable to coordinate. It's like cutting the head off a snake, except the body doesn't know what to do without the brain. Jake was about to put that theory to the test. "Nicole, signal all ships. Operation Surprise Party is a go." "Aye, Captain. Sending the signal now." Around the battle area, 3 cloaked human ships received their orders. The UES Ghost, commanded by Captain Pete Johnson, was positioned directly above the Kethvar formation. The UES Shadow, under Captain Maria Santos, was below them. The UES Phantom, led by Captain Steve Davis, was coming in from the side. All 3 ships began moving toward their target at exactly the same moment. The Kethvar were still trying to figure out why their weapons had passed through the Liberty, when the real surprise began. The UES Ghost decloaked first, appearing directly above the Kethvar command ship like a predator diving on its prey. The alien crew had less than 2 seconds to react before the Ghost's weapon systems came online. "Multiple contacts," Lisa Park reported. "Ghost, Shadow, and Phantom are all decloaking on schedule." Jake watched as his plan unfolded perfectly. The UES Shadow appeared below the enemy formation, while the Phantom came in from the port side. In an instant, the tactical situation had completely reversed. The Kethvar ships that had thought they were surrounding one helpless human vessel suddenly found themselves surrounded by 4 human ships. But the real stroke of genius was still to come. The actual Liberty decloaked directly beneath Commander Vexathol's flagship. Jake had positioned his ship so that the Kethvar command vessel was trapped between the Liberty below and the Ghost above. "Surprise," Jake said quietly. On the main screen, he could see the panic on the alien bridge. Vexthal was shouting orders, but his crew was too shocked to respond quickly. The Kethvar had never faced an enemy that could appear and disappear like ghosts. "Captain," Nicole White reported, "all ships are in position and ready to engage." Jake studied the tactical display one more time. The 7 Kethvar ships were now completely surrounded by 4 human vessels. The aliens' perfect formation had become a trap with no way out. "Ryan, target their communication arrays," Jake ordered. "I want those ships unable to talk to each other." "Targeting communications, aye, sir," Ryan replied. His fingers moved across his weapons console as he locked onto the sensor and communication equipment on each enemy ship. Dr. Adams looked up from his station with excitement in his eyes. "Captain, if we can disrupt their ability to coordinate, their pack mentality will work against them. They'll start making individual decisions instead of working as a team." "That's exactly what I'm counting on," Jake replied. He opened a channel to all 4 human ships. "All vessels, this is Morrison. Execute Phase 2 on my mark. Remember, we want to capture these ships if possible. These aliens are going to learn that humans prefer to win wars, not just battles." The bridge crew prepared for what would come next. They had practiced this scenario dozens of times in simulations, but this was the real thing. Jake looked around at his people and felt proud of what they had accomplished. "Mark," Jake said into the communication system. 4 human ships opened fire at exactly the same moment. The human weapons fire was precise and devastating. Ryan Cole's targeting was perfect as the Liberty's energy beams struck the communication arrays on 3 HFY ships. The UES Ghost, Shadow, and Phantom followed the same pattern, hitting the remaining 4 enemy vessels with surgical strikes that left their main hulls intact, but destroyed their ability to coordinate. Jake Morrison watched the tactical display as chaos began to spread through the alien formation. Within seconds, the 7 HFY ships had gone from a unified fighting force to 7 isolated vessels, each unable to communicate with the others. "Communication jamming is complete, Captain," reported electronic warfare specialist Kate Johnson from her station. "All enemy ships are deaf and blind to each other." But Jake's plan went much deeper than simply cutting off their communications. Dr. Henry Adams had spent months studying HFY psychology and had discovered their critical weakness. The aliens were pack hunters who relied on constant communication and clear hierarchies. When that structure broke down, they became confused and made poor decisions. "Kate, initiate the confusion protocol," Jake ordered. Kate Johnson smiled as she activated the most devious part of their plan. Her equipment began broadcasting false signals to each HFY ship on their emergency frequencies. Each vessel was receiving different information about what was happening in the battle. The HFY ship, designated Alpha, was being told that ships Beta and Gamma had been destroyed. Ship Beta was hearing that Alpha had surrendered and ordered a retreat. Ship Gamma was receiving signals that made it think ships Alpha and Beta were firing on each other. "It's beautiful," Dr. Adams said as he watched the alien reactions on his monitors. "They're completely confused. Each ship thinks something different is happening." Jake could see the results on his tactical display. The tight HFY formation was falling apart as individual ships began acting on their own. Some were trying to retreat, others were preparing to attack, and a few seemed to be turning toward their own allies. "Lisa, keep us positioned between their command ship and any escape routes," Jake ordered. "I want Vexthol to see everything that happens to his fleet." Navigation Officer Lisa Park adjusted the Liberty's position smoothly. "Aye, Captain. We're blocking his primary escape vector." The psychological warfare was working even better than Jake had hoped. The HFY were a species that had dominated space through superior numbers and coordinated attacks. They had never learned to fight as individuals because they had never needed to. "Ryan, prepare to broadcast the death screams," Jake said. Ryan Cole looked up from his weapons console. "Are you sure about this, Captain? It seems pretty harsh." "These aliens came here planning to capture our ship and take our people prisoner," Jake replied. "I want them to understand exactly what kind of species they're dealing with." The death screams were recordings that human intelligence had gathered from previous HFY battles. When their ships were destroyed, the aliens made distinctive sounds that their species recognized as signals of death and defeat. Kate Johnson began broadcasting these sounds on the frequencies that HFY used for battle coordination. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien ships began firing wildly in all directions. Without communication, and hearing what they thought were the death cries of their comrades, panic spread through their ranks like wildfire. Ship Delta opened fire on Ship Echo, thinking it was under attack. Ship Echo returned fire, believing that Delta had betrayed them. Within minutes, 2 HFY vessels were shooting at each other while the human ships watched from a safe distance. "This is incredible," said Dr. Adams. "Their pack hunting instincts are completely breaking down. When they can't coordinate, they become their own worst enemies." Jake felt a mixture of satisfaction and pity as he watched the alien fleet destroy itself. The HFY had been so confident in their superior numbers that they had never considered what would happen if those numbers worked against them. "Captain," Nicole White reported, "Ship Foxtrot is trying to ram Ship Golf. They seem to think Golf is a human vessel in disguise." "Let them," Jake replied. "The more confused they get, the easier this becomes for us." Commander Vexthal's flagship was still trapped between the Liberty and the Ghost, but Jake could see that the alien commander was trying desperately to regain control of his fleet. The Kethvar ship was broadcasting on multiple frequencies, but the signals were being jammed or intercepted by Kate Johnson's equipment. "Kate, let one message through from their command ship," Jake ordered. "I want to hear what Vexthal has to say." Kate adjusted her controls and allowed a single communication to reach the other Kethvar ships. On the main screen, Jake could see Commander Vexathul shouting orders at his remaining vessels. The alien's scaled face was dark with rage and frustration. "All ships, cease fire immediately," Vexthul was screaming. "You are firing on your own fleet. The humans are using deception and lies to turn us against each other." But it was too late. The damage was already done. 3 Kethvar ships had been disabled by friendly fire, and the remaining vessels were too confused and panicked to coordinate an effective response. "Block his signal again," Jake told Kate. "I don't want them getting organized." The bridge crew watched as the alien fleet continued to fall apart. Jake had studied human military history extensively, and he knew that the greatest victories often came not from superior firepower, but from superior tactics and psychology. "Danny, how are our power levels?" Jake asked his chief engineer. "All systems optimal, Captain," Danny Brooks replied. "The cloaking devices used more power than usual, but were still at 80% capacity. That was important because Jake wasn't done yet. The plan called for one more demonstration of human tactical thinking. He wanted the surviving Kethvar to understand that they weren't just being defeated, they were being completely outclassed. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake said into his communication system. "Begin precision targeting. I want clean disabling shots on all remaining enemy vessels. Show them what human accuracy looks like." The 4 human ships began moving through the chaos of the Kethvar formation like surgeons with scalpels. Each shot was carefully aimed to disable engines, weapons, or shields without destroying the ships or killing their crews. The UES Ghost targeted the engine systems on 2 damaged Kethvar vessels, leaving them dead in space, but alive. The Shadow and Phantom worked together to strip the weapons from the remaining functional ships. The Liberty focused on the command vessel, systematically destroying every system except life support and basic power. "This is like watching a master class in space combat," said Dr. Adams. "We're not just defeating them, we're demonstrating complete tactical superiority." Jake nodded as he watched the final phase of the battle unfold. The Kethvar had come here expecting to overwhelm a single human ship with superior numbers. Instead, they had been outmaneuvered, confused, and systematically disabled by an enemy they had never bothered to understand. "Ryan, hold fire," Jake ordered as the last Kethvar weapons went offline. "I think they get the message." The space around the Liberty was filled with disabled alien ships. Some were completely powerless, others had minimal systems still functioning, but none of them posed any threat to the human fleet. "Captain," Lisa Park reported, "all enemy vessels have been neutralized. No casualties on any of our ships." Jake looked at the tactical display one final time. 7 Kethvar ships had been defeated by 4 human vessels without a single human, life lost. It was exactly the kind of victory that would send a message throughout the galaxy. "Open a channel to the Kethvar command ship," Jake said. "I think it's time for Commander Vexthul and I to have another conversation." The main screen flickered to life and showed Commander Vexthul's face. The Kethvar looked very different now than he had at the beginning of the battle. His yellow eyes were wide with shock and his scaled skin had turned a darker shade of green. Jake could see that the alien was finally beginning to understand what he was really dealing with. "Commander," Jake said in a calm voice, "I hope you're starting to see why humans don't like to be threatened." Vexthul's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. "How did you do this? 7 ships should have been more than enough to defeat 1 human vessel." "You made several mistakes," Jake replied. He stood up from his command chair and walked closer to the screen. "First, you assumed that what you could see was all there was. Second, you thought that superior numbers guaranteed victory. Third, you never bothered to learn anything about human tactics." Behind Jake, his bridge crew continued monitoring the disabled Kethvar ships. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks was running diagnostics on their own systems while Navigation Officer Lisa Park kept track of the enemy vessels' positions. Your species has been fighting wars the same way for hundreds of years, Jake continued. You surround your enemies, demand surrender, and use brute force to win. It worked against other alien species because they all think the same way you do. On the screen, Vexthal's expression was changing from shock to something that might have been respect. And humans think differently. We think very differently, Jake confirmed. Humans have been fighting wars on our planet for thousands of years. We've learned that the best way to win is not to have the most ships or the biggest weapons. The best way to win is to make sure your enemy doesn't understand what they're fighting until it's too late. Dr. Henry Adams looked up from his station where he had been monitoring the Kethvar crew's vital signs. Captain, their stress levels are off the charts. I don't think they've ever experienced anything like this before. Jake nodded. That was exactly what he had hoped for. The plan wasn't just to defeat the Kethvar fleet. It was to demonstrate human capabilities in a way that would be remembered and reported throughout the galaxy. Ryan, status report on the enemy vessels, Jake requested. Weapons. Specialist Ryan Cole checked his displays. All 7 ships are disabled but intact, Captain. No hull breaches, no loss of life support. They're floating, but they're not going anywhere. That had been a crucial part of Jake's strategy. He could have destroyed all 7 ships easily, but that would have sent the wrong message. Anyone could build bigger weapons and blow things up. What made humans dangerous was their ability to win battles without unnecessary destruction. Commander Vexthal, Jake said, turning back to the main screen. I'm going to do something that I bet you weren't expecting. The alien's eyes narrowed, with suspicion. What do you mean? I'm going to help repair your ships, Jake replied. The silence that followed this statement was complete. Even Jake's own bridge crew looked surprised. They had known the basic plan, but this part was something Jake had kept to himself until now. You want to help us? Vexthal asked. His voice showed total confusion. That's right, Jake said. My ships are going to provide assistance to your damaged vessels. We'll help you get your life support systems back to full power and make sure your crews are safe. Electronic warfare specialist Kate Johnson turned around in her chair to look at Jake. Captain, are you sure about this? They came here to capture us. Yes, they did, Jake replied, but now they're defeated and helpless. That makes them our responsibility. Jake had learned this lesson from studying human military history. The greatest victories were not just about defeating enemies, they were about what you did after the fighting was over. How you treated defeated opponents often determined whether you made future allies or future enemies. Danny, prepare repair teams, Jake ordered. I want engineering crews ready to assist the Kethvar ships with their critical systems. Danny Brooks looked puzzled, but he began preparing the equipment. Aye, Captain. What should we prioritize? Life support first, then communications, then engines, Jake replied. I want them able to get home safely. On the main screen, Commander Vexthal was staring at Jake with an expression that the human captain had never seen on an alien face before. It looked almost like wonder. Why would you help us after what we tried to do to you? The Kethvar asked. Because that's what humans do, Jake replied simply. We don't fight wars because we enjoy killing. We fight wars to protect ourselves and our friends. Once the war is over, we try to make sure it doesn't happen again. Dr. Adams had been monitoring the conversation with great interest. Captain, this is fascinating from a psychological standpoint. The Kethvar don't have any cultural reference for this kind of behavior. Jake opened a channel to all 4 human ships. Ghost, Shadow, Phantom. This is Liberty. Prepare to render assistance to disabled enemy vessels. Medical teams and repair. Crew standby. The responses came back immediately. Captain Pete Johnson of the Ghost, Captain Maria Santos of the Shadow, and Captain Steve Davis of the Phantom all confirmed their readiness to help. Lisa, move us closer to the Kethvar command ship, Jake ordered. But keep our weapons powered down. I want them to see that we're not a threat anymore. As the Liberty moved closer to Vexthal's vessel, Jake could see the alien crew watching through their bridge windows. They looked scared and confused, which was understandable. Everything they thought they knew about warfare had just been turned upside down. "Commander," Jake said to Vexthul, "my people are going to come aboard your ship to help with repairs. They're not armed and they're not there to take prisoners. They're there to help." "I don't understand," Vexthul replied. "This makes no tactical sense. Why would you reveal your ship's capabilities and then help us return home to report what we've learned?" Jake smiled at that question. "Because, Commander, I want you to report what you've learned. I want every species in the galaxy to know exactly what happened here today." The first human repair shuttle launched from the Liberty's Bay and headed toward the Kethvar command ship. Jake watched it go and felt satisfied with how the day had developed. "You see," Jake continued his conversation with Vexthul, "you came here today to test whether humans were ready for the galaxy. You wanted to know if we could defend ourselves and if we understood how space warfare worked." "Yes," the alien admitted. "Well, now you know," Jake said. "We can defend ourselves very well. We understand space warfare better than you thought. But most importantly, we understand something that I don't think your people have learned yet." "What is that?" Vexthul asked. "We understand that the strongest position is not the one where everyone fears you," Jake replied. "The strongest position is the one where everyone respects you. Fear only lasts until someone stronger comes along. Respect lasts much longer." The repair shuttle docked with the Kethvar ship, and human engineers began working to restore the alien vessel's critical systems. Jake watched the progress reports and felt proud of his crew's professionalism. "Captain," Nicole White reported, "we're receiving communications from the other Kethvar ships. They want to know what's happening." "Put me through to all of them," Jake said. It was time to address the entire enemy fleet and make sure they all understood the message he was trying to send. Jake Morrison stood in the center of his bridge and looked at the main screen, which now showed the faces of all 7 Kethvar ship commanders. The aliens looked confused, defeated, and uncertain about what would happen next. This was exactly the moment Jake had been working toward. "Commanders," Jake began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had just won a complete victory. "I want to make sure you all understand what happened here today." The Kethvar officers exchanged glances with each other. Commander Vexthul spoke for all of them. "We understand that we were defeated by tactics we had never encountered before." "That's part of it," Jake replied. "But there's more to learn here. You came to this system because someone told you that humans might be a threat to the established order in the galaxy. You were sent to test us and see if we could defend ourselves." Communications Officer Tony Martinez was monitoring subspace channels, and he looked up at Jake with surprise. "Captain, we're receiving signals from across the sector. Word about this battle is spreading fast." Jake nodded. He had expected that to happen. News traveled quickly in space, especially news about new species proving themselves in combat. "What you discovered today," Jake continued, addressing the Kethvar commanders, "is that humans don't just defend ourselves. We think about warfare in ways that your species has never considered. We use deception, psychology, and technology in combinations that make us very dangerous enemies." Chief Medical Officer Rachel Stone entered the bridge and approached Jake. "Captain, I've reviewed the medical scans from the Kethvar ships. No serious injuries, but their stress levels are extremely high. I recommend we continue providing medical assistance along with the engineering support." "Agreed," Jake said. "Make sure all their crews receive whatever medical attention they need." This simple act of providing medical care to defeated enemies was having a powerful effect on the alien commanders. Jake could see it in their faces. They had never experienced anything like this before. Dr. Henry Adams was taking detailed notes about the Kethvar reactions. "Captain, this is unprecedented. In their culture, defeated enemies are either destroyed or enslaved. The concept of providing aid after battle is completely foreign to them." Jake turned back to the screen and continued his conversation with the alien commanders. "Here's what I want you to understand. Humans could have destroyed all of your ships today. We had the tactical advantage and the firepower to wipe out your entire fleet." Several of the Kethvar officers nodded reluctantly. They had seen enough of human capabilities to know this was true. "But we didn't destroy you," Jake continued. "Do you know why? Commander Vexthul answered slowly. Because you wanted prisoners. For interrogation? No, Jake replied. We didn't destroy you because we didn't need to. The strongest position is not the one where you kill all your enemies. The strongest position is the one where your enemies become your allies. The silence that followed this statement was profound. Jake could see the alien commanders trying to process this completely alien concept. Lisa Park reported from her navigation station. Captain, the repair work is going well. The Kethvar ships should be ready for travel within a few hours. Excellent, Jake said. Then he addressed the alien commanders again. When your ships are repaired, you're free to return to your space. You can report to your superiors exactly what happened here today. You're just letting us go? Asked one of the other Kethvar commanders. Of course, Jake replied. You came here to test human capabilities. Now you know what those capabilities are. Go home and share that information with anyone who wants to hear it. Jake walked over to his command chair and sat down. Around him, his bridge crew continued monitoring the situation and coordinating the repair efforts. They had performed perfectly during the battle, and they were performing perfectly now during the aftermath. Tony, what kind of communications traffic are you seeing? Jake asked. Communications Officer Tony Martinez checked his displays. Multiple species are requesting information about the engagement, Captain. The Hegemony Council wants a full report. The Kethvar High Command is demanding to know what happened to their fleet. And what are you telling them? Jake asked. Nothing yet, sir. I wanted to check with you first. Jake considered this for a moment. The next few hours would be crucial for establishing humanity's position in galactic politics. How they handled the communications would be just as important as how they had handled the battle. Open a general broadcast on all frequencies, Jake ordered. I want every species in the sector to hear this. Tony Martinez activated the ship's main communication array. All frequencies open, Captain. You're broadcasting to the entire sector. Jake stood up again and faced the main screen. He knew that his words would be heard by dozens of different alien species and would probably be analyzed by xenopolitics experts throughout the galaxy. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Liberty, he began. Today, representatives of the Kethvar hegemony engaged human vessels in what they called a test of our defensive capabilities. Jake paused for a moment to let that sink in before continuing. The test has been completed. 7 Kethvar ships engaged 4 human vessels. The result was a complete tactical victory for the human fleet. No human casualties, no human ships damaged. All Kethvar vessels were disabled and are currently receiving humanitarian assistance from human crews. Dr. Adams looked up from his station with excitement. Captain, the psychological impact of this broadcast is going to be enormous. You're not just reporting a victory, you're demonstrating human values at the same time. Jake continued his broadcast. Let me be clear about what this means. Humanity is ready to take its place among the spacefaring civilizations of the galaxy. We can defend ourselves against any threat. We can project power across interstellar distances. Most importantly, we can win wars without becoming monsters in the process. On the screen showing the Kethvar commanders, Jake could see that they were listening to every word. Their expressions had changed from confusion to something that looked like respect. To any species considering testing human resolve, Jake continued, I want you to understand something important. We prefer peace to war, cooperation to conflict, and building to destroying. But if you threaten human lives or human interests, you will discover that we are very, very good at warfare. Jake ended the broadcast and turned back to the Kethvar commanders. Gentlemen, in a few hours your ships will be fully operational. When you return home, I want you to deliver a message for me. What message? Commander Vexthul asked. Tell your leaders that humanity is open to diplomatic relations with any species that approaches us with respect and honesty. Tell them that we're interested in trade, cultural exchange, and mutual defense agreements, but also tell them that we will not tolerate threats, intimidation, or unprovoked attacks. Jake looked around his bridge at the crew that had made this victory possible. They had performed beyond his highest expectations and had proven that human tactical thinking could overcome any numerical disadvantage. Captain, Chief Engineer Danny Brooks reported, The last Kethvar ship has been restored to full operational status. They're ready to depart whenever you give the word. Jake opened the channel to all 7 alien vessels one final time. Commanders, your ships are repaired and you're free to go. I hope that when we meet again, it will be under more peaceful circumstances. Commander Vexthul spoke for his entire fleet. Captain Morrison, today you have taught us that there is more to strength than superior numbers. We will not forget this lesson. Jake watched as the 7 Kethvar ships powered up their engines and began moving away from the human fleet. Within minutes, they had jumped to hyperspace and disappeared from the sensors. Well, Jake said to his crew, I think we can officially say that humanity has announced its presence to the galaxy.